we're out of here. Today our eventual route is going to be Bar Harbor, Maine, which means we're crossing the New Brunswick and then into the USA in one day. It's actually going to be a pretty long day because we've got 471 miles to go, one of our biggest days since the very first day. And we'll be there at 5 p.m. without any stops at all, which really means like a 7 p.m. set up 10. It's going to be a long freaking day. Called our campsite in Bar Harbor. They are ready to welcome us with open arms. I could have shaved about an hour off our trip if I had done just highway, but I did a little bit of local roads, maybe some dirt roads. Yeah, it's gonna be a long day for sure. And we're off. Full tank of gas. And oh man, that feels good. I started to bake. I put my jacket on very last minute because I started to bake in it. And I'm so glad to have some wind moving across my body now. Oh my God, that feels good. Oh man, it feels good. Woo. All right. So, yeah, I'm feeling good though. I slept really, really well last night. And we had a couple of nice tent mates. We had some guys next to us with 2 Yamahas and 1 Triumph Street Triple. A couple of Harley guys were chatting with us. Really, really nice people overall. We really had some good conversations last night. Probably drank too much bourbon, but I'm feeling okay this morning. We're gonna find a Jiffy store, Gas Mart, and get some water for my Hydro Pack and some ice cold water. But yeah, it's gonna be hot today too. I mean, it's already what's the temperature? It's already 74 degrees at 9:30. It's gonna be a high of about 85 today. And again, 470 miles. Not my longest day ever, by about 200 miles short. My longest day ever after having ridden for 10 days in a row now. So it's Monday the 30th. Let's go. I'm taking this break in me talking to the camera to talk over the video. This ended up being, I think, like a 500-mile day because of all of our detours. And this is the most beautiful part of the day. It was all interstate. We were on the interstate for like 6 hours. You know, passing through Nova Scotia on the interstate, New Brunswick, Fundy, northeastern Maine. It was a lot of highway, a lot of big trucks. Every time I passed a truck, my front wheel would get super light and squirrely, even with the steering stabilizer at 18 clicks out of 24 as far as the hardness rating for destabilization. But yeah, it was just a really brutal day, and I was so happy. Well, you'll see in 15 minutes getting to Maine and having some seafood.
I was walking around inside my visor.
You okay?
Yeah, I got him out, but we came to a screeching halt to do it.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I thought you'd wrecked. We're in, is it Tatamagouche, where we are. We've already done 100 miles, by the way. 25% of the way there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did 100 miles out of 400 so far.
Jeez.
And we're gonna have some lunch right there. Bikes are doing well. Traffic wasn't too bad. So, already off to a pretty good start. How you feeling?
Good.
I could eat something.
Just didn't have breakfast, so.
Oh yeah, you didn't have breakfast. I was hoping that you wouldn't. I was thinking the whole time you were going to signal to me that you were ready to stop. And I kept feeling like, I hope he doesn't do that because we're almost at the place. I gotta remember where we stopped here, but this was an awesome little deli. I mean, they were dry aging their own meats. They had a lot of stuff to go, a lot of fish, a lot of just stuff packaged on site. And they had these $5 sandwiches, which were really just basic bread. They weren't focaccia or baguettes or anything. But
one of the best lunches of this entire trip, just because all of our lunches were usually like rehydrated meals or chips or like diner food. And this was really, really good. So definitely worth going back to at some point. Oh yeah, Dexter's Butcher Block. There it is.
We're still in Nova Scotia, but we are very soon in New Brunswick. Like, very soon. This is kind of one of our last, like, sort of cities that we're seeing before we enter into another province. It'll be my first time in New Brunswick. Never been before, despite sharing a border with it. And, you know, Nova Scotia was a little bit colder for Canadians, you know, going. You know, Quebec I always thought was pretty cold, but I've really kind of learned to talk the talk and get along with Quebecois people really well. I've got some good friends that are from Quebec. Labrador was just immensely welcoming. Newfoundland, lesser so, but still pretty damn welcoming. And then you have Nova Scotia, which is just, you know, nice, friendly, helpful, but distant. Reminds me of my first time I moved to New England and just kind of how people treat you from New England. But now we're going to be in New Brunswick, so I'm pretty excited to see how that goes. And we won't be there for more than a few hours, because as soon as we get done with New Brunswick, we'll be going to Maine. And hopefully we'll make it to Maine tonight. I hope we do, because that'll mean making it home tomorrow. So that is our current dealio. Having a pretty good day though. That guy was eating a freeze pop. For some reason my GoPro froze up. Passing a bunch of wind turbines, which is pretty cool. It's always cool to see those. When the light is flashing, oh, scale is open. Maybe we should go through. He and I were having a bet that my bike, I thought my bike weighs 100 pounds more than his. He said about 50 with all the gear I put on and aftermarket stuff. So we're having a little bit of a bet on whose bike weighed more. And we found a few scales on this trip, but they were all closed. I don't know how they feel about us going through the tractor trailer scale. I think we're in New Brunswick. Yeah, that was the New Brunswick sign right there. So we're in New Brunswick now. Awesome. That's pretty cool. Well, this is today's view. We're doing about 200 miles of interstate today. It's really boring stuff. But I think we're both in a good place. We want to get home. Or at least get to something that's a little bit more exciting. You know, nothing against New Brunswick, but other than spending a day in Fundy, I think we're looking forward to getting to Bar Harbor. We both haven't been before, so going to Bar Harbor and checking that out, and that'll set us up for a perfect, not a bit of off-road, on-road ride back to my place tomorrow. So, you know, not interstates, but today is the shitty day, and that's okay. So everything's good. Just not doing a lot of videos today because this is all you're going to see is it's like every other interstate in America. So it's good though. You know, that's no complaints. We'd rather be on the back road, of course. Both have our gear fully geared up under our windscreens, just sort of hunched over, jamming the tunes. That's today's theme. Alright, well, we are passing through St. John or St. John's? It's St. John, Brunswick. Looks like every other city. We never made it to St. John's, Newfoundland or Halifax, Nova Scotia. This is kind of our first provincial capital since, well, Quebec City. So, quite a while since we've done a capital city, and it's very much like Springfield, Mass. Gotta go a little bit slower there. The speed limit is 56 mph. I'm doing 67. For a while, it's been 68 miles an hour, so we've been doing 73, which is a good pace. Yeah, St. John. Not St. John's. I'm sure there are things to do here, but we just don't have a lot of time today. We got another 183 miles to go, and it is 3:27. So, still have things to do, basically, and not enough time to do it. Hey, what's the hockey studio, though? The Sea Dogs. Go Sea Dogs. Now it's 70. Alright. Well, best mind the speed limit and get pulled over. Well, my trip meter has hit 3,000 miles. Well, 3,001 mile. So that's the current log. It's 3,000 miles in this trip. And I've also crossed 12,000 miles on the bike, which means that spark plugs and valve checks are supposed to happen right this second. Pretty exciting, though. 3,000 miles in this trip. And I actually started about 50 or 100 miles north of my house. So it's a little bit off, but we're probably at 3,500 miles in this trip, I think. And so it's short of the 4,000, but it's because we didn't go to St. John's and we didn't go to Halifax. If we had done those two trips, we would be sitting at 4,000, but it also would be 3 days from now would be at this point. So I'm happy with how things went. Pretty stoked to see 3,000 miles on the clock there.
Where'd you guys go?
Up to Labrador City, over to Goose Bay in Labrador, and then down to Newfoundland and Nova Scotia.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a long way. About 3,000 miles.
Good. The bikes take a beating.
Jonathan about 4 or 5 times.
What's that?
Jonathan 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
We were doing a lot of off-roading, a lot of crazy gravel and stuff.
Bringing anything back with you?
No. Just some Canadian cash I forgot to spend.
You get geared up, but just hold on. Don't start.
Sure. Thank you. Sorry, that caught me there. We are 36 miles from Bar Harbor, and it finally looks like some of the roads I actually recognize again. Not like this particular road, I've been to Bar Harbor before, but this is starting to feel like New England again, and like my normal haunts where I ride around Maine and New Hampshire, and this all looks familiar now finally, and I'm once again completely terrified of a moose coming out in front of me. But we are close, less than an hour to go before we are in Bar Harbor. We go to a campground there. Hopefully find some fresh seafood. We've eaten tons of seafood this week. Ever since we got to Newfoundland and Nova Scotia and then New Brunswick, we've had seafood almost every meal, I think. And I fell in love with fish cakes a lot. And I'm just really, really digging the seafood this week. And we're going to get something tonight, probably some with clams or lobster, I think. But everything's going good. I think it's a good time. 35 miles to go, and my range is 57 miles. So we should get there right when the gas light turns on. So, yeah. Hopefully no moose get in the way. Alright, well, we made it to Bar Harbor, I think. Oh, wait, 19 miles away, I guess. But I'm now following BB-8 because he has the... he wants to go to a fishery to buy, or a fish market to buy some shrimp. And I actually want to go out for dinner. So he's going to cook up some shrimp, I think, at the campsite while I go out to dinner. So I actually really just want to enjoy the scenery a little bit. I've never been here before. And yeah, I got my first call from Heather since we got cell phone service again. That was pretty cool. It worked fine. It's hard to talk really with all this navigating going on, but it's good to hear from her and gas light just came on. 46 miles to go. All right. We are crossing the bridge over to Bar Harbor. Gloves are off. Going to the campground first, set up camp, and then we'll go out to dinner. Looks like it's low tide. Have not ever been here before, so I'm pretty excited actually. It's a place I've wanted to go for a while, and see how close it is to Far Harbor in in Fallout. Maybe there'll be some similarities.
This is BB-8 laughing at me because he left all of his stuff on the bike, and I decided to take all my stuff with me, citing to the rest of the world that there's like $5,000 of stuff on my body and in my tank bag. I'm not leaving it on the bike. He was like, "You're a loss." This is a restaurant in Bar Harbor. We learned quickly that Bar Harbor is really just where old people go to spend their money. We had been on the road for like 11 days, and we stunk, and we looked terrible, and we were sitting next to these really wealthy old people who were telling us about their like fourth home in Aspen. It was really weird. And then I paid $35 for a boiled plate of random seafood and some summer squash. Kind of a ripoff, but it was nice to get like a restaurant meal for the first time in a few days. Bar Harbor was interesting. I would want to go back. My girlfriend does, but I personally would have no reason to ever go back. Meh.
Finally in some civilization. Like BB-8 was saying, like there's almost too many people. It's just like way too many people.
Yeah, it's crazy. We passed more cars in 300 feet than we had in 300 miles.
Yeah, we have to like constantly look out for everything.
Yeah.